It's a pleasure for me this evening to be in Mombasa. And welcome to this town hall, one among many that I will be holding to have a direct engagement with the people of Kenya on matters that are important to us as a nation. This evening's town hall is going to be about one of the most important things that informed our campaign, and one of the most important things that is a source of concern to many families, many young people across Kenya, and that is jobs. I remember very well in the last campaign, we had a whole discussion about how do we create jobs. And this is a conversation we've been having as a nation for many years. And that is why last year, the year before, sorry, I took it upon myself to prosecute this matter and to give deliberate, intentional, practical interventions in the manifesto that I ran on and which I have been implementing on how we are going to create jobs. For a very long time, many people thought that if we grow the economy will create jobs. That is true. But we must be, if we have to create enough jobs, we must be intentional, we must be deliberate on investing and running programs that create jobs, and we should be able, from every program, to know how many jobs are we creating, what impact is it making, and how is it changing the fortunes of our country. And so this evening, I welcome you to this town hall, and I welcome each and every one of you. When you get a moment, please ask me whatever questions you have in this space, or indeed any other questions you may have, because I'm here to answer those questions. Karibuni sana. When I came into office, I changed the law on housing to create the housing fund and the housing levy. Why? Because one of the programs that has potential to create millions of jobs, and this is not just in Kenya, this is globally. And I changed the law because the Housing Act that was passed in Kenya was passed at the same time as the Housing Act in Singapore. The difference is that Singapore made progress on their program on housing. We did not. And so I changed the law. I know it was a difficult decision. We had a robust conversation in Kenya. Today, let me tell you where we are. Today, because of the housing fund, we have 160,000 people working in the housing program. 160,000. People who are not working a year and a half ago. Today, we have engineers, we have quantity surveyors, we have architects, we have electricians, we have masons, we have carpenters, we have steel fixers, we have a whole ecosystem of people who manufacture steel, people who manufacture cement, people who manufacture concrete, an array of businesses that have been created by the housing fund. We are building at the moment 103,000 housing units, including the ones I launched yesterday in Matuga. I launched the first phase in Matuga yesterday. I will be back here in Mombasa to launch the first 2,000 housing units in Nyali. There are programs that we have already, programs across Kenya in 43 counties across Kenya that are undergoing this program, so that we not only create jobs, but we also create opportunities for business, and we also deal with the challenge of informal settlements and create living conditions for Kenya in decent estates, in decent areas across Kenya. I will give you a challenge. If you go to Mukuru, one of our largest informal settlements in Kenya, we are today building 14,000 units. And in the next couple of months, before the end of this year, I will be giving out keys to some of those houses that are ready. And for your information, some of these housing units are actually social housing units. For the first time, a mama mboga or a boda boda or an ordinary Kenyan can own a house in a social housing program because they can pay 2,500, 3,000 every month and end up owning that house. There will be other Kenyans who will be owning other units, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, single units, 3 bedroom, and different categories. We are also using that housing program to make sure that we reduce on the cost of mortgage. Now, a teacher, for example, can have a mortgage at 9%. Today, if you go to the mortgage market, you will pay not less than 20%. So we are not only changing the housing program, we are creating jobs. In part of our program is the digital superhighway. We knew very well that there is an opportunity in the digital space because the world is going technology, the world is going digital, and that is why even government of Kenya, we are taking our government services to the digital space. When I came into office, only 320 government services were available online. Today, we have more than 20,000 government services online. And that space is important. And because we want to create more opportunities in the digital space, we are doing 2 things. Number 1, we are working with companies like CCI, for example, companies that have contracts to work from remote, but work for companies in Europe, in America, in other areas. CCI, for example, is working with us. I went to launch in Ruiru their first unit where they are hiring 5,000 Kenyans who are working for JetBlue, companies in America, working from Kenya, and they are paid in dollars. That is one space. And what have we done? We have also done the second thing. We have changed the law on CDF. And we've changed the law on CDF so that it becomes possible for us as a country to invest in ICT hubs. And I have agreed with all members of parliament that every ward will have an ICT hub. I was there yesterday. I was in Kinango yesterday at the Technical Training College in Kinango. And I spoke to a gentleman called Juma. And Juma was telling me how he is making money on forex trading. And this is a student who is in Kinango. I went to Matuga yesterday. At the Technical Training College in Matuga, I met the same. People who are monetizing their talent, people who are earning money on the digital space. And I have been to many parts of Kenya and witnessed many young people in Kenya who today, courtesy of our ICT hubs, they are monetizing their talent, they are working online. Some of them are students. In fact, very interestingly, I went to one school in one college somewhere in Nandi. And I met a gentleman called Brian. And Brian told me, you know, Mr. President, I work for an AI company in Germany. Mind you, Brian has never been to Nairobi. And he doesn't even have a passport. But he works for an AI company in Germany. He makes money. In fact, in that school, the principal told me, we are beginning to have a problem here in this school because some of these students, they earn more than the teachers. So, on the digital space, we are working round the clock. And I have told members of parliament, they need, and I want to ask citizens to demand from our members of parliament that the program we have on ICT hubs, there should be an ICT hub in every ward. We can connect millions of young people to jobs on the digital space, to e-commerce on the digital space, because what government is going to do, members of parliament are going to build the ICT hubs, the government of Kenya is going to deliver internet, the government of Kenya is going to deliver trainers, we are going to deliver computers. It is up to the young people of Kenya to monetize their knowledge, their talent, their expertise, and grow their incomes. That is program number 2. That is going on as I talk to you. We have already distributed 16,000 computers to all our TVETs in Kenya today, not tomorrow. And there are 120,000, mark that number, 120,000 young people in our TVETs who today are earning on the digital platform because of our training and because of what we have done in that digital space. I have changed the management of NEA, National Employment Authority, so that we can tap into opportunities to work outside Kenya. What are we doing in that space? I have negotiated many opportunities. Many people have been asking me, Mr. President, why are you traveling? Yeah? And I want to use this opportunity to answer them. I have been traveling to make sure that I connect Kenyans to jobs, both in country and outside country. We are signing 19 bilateral labor agreements with different countries. In fact, we just concluded one with Germany. So that what happens? So that some of our talented young people, because this is what other countries like Philippines have done. When you have good quality labor, you can use it to drive our economy. In fact, remittances from Kenyans, very hardworking Kenyans outside Kenya, is all the way to about $4 billion. So that is a space we want to use because Kenyans have good education, they speak good English, they are self-motivated, they need less supervision. Any company anywhere in the world will want to hire a Kenyan. And therefore, we must use it because it is the asset that we have. And that is what I have been doing to try and connect Kenyans to jobs outside Kenya. I said today, for example, that those opportunities are available. In fact, if you go to the Ministry of Labor website, there are approximately 400,000 jobs as I talk to you today. Different types of jobs. We must begin to manufacture things, products that can be manufactured in Kenya instead of importing everything from everywhere. There was a time we were importing toothpicks, imagine. Yeah? And there are people who want to tell us we must continue importing things and products. I made a decision that anything that we have the manufacturing capacity in Kenya, any product that we have manufacturing capacity in Kenya, we must begin to apply duty so that we stop products from other countries and build our own manufacturing capacity, hire our own young people, use our own raw materials, build our own wealth. And let me give you an example. Last year, we imposed duty on steel billets, on cement, on clinker, and on furniture. There was a bit of noise last year because I put down my foot and I said, look, if we have manufacturing capacity in Kenya, somebody explain to me why we continue to import these products. Do you know what happened? Because we put duty on those products, steel, for example, steel billets, 11 companies that had closed down because we had opened the door for importing of steel billets. 11 companies today, hiring 16,000 Kenyans, have opened. And they're now hiring Kenyans and producing steel billets locally in Kenya. You know what's interesting? The same people who were complaining last year, I met them this year. And they told me, Mr. President, you see, that duty you imposed on that product last year. I told them, why don't you reduce it from 17% to 10%? They told me, no, keep it at 17%. Why? Because they had now invested in Kenya. They were producing those products locally. And do you know what? We saved 100 billion shillings of foreign exchange because of stopping to import steel billets. These are statistics that are out there, right? So it is partly why our dollar situation is stabilizing, because we have stopped importing things, products that we can manufacture locally. 11 companies that had closed down, steel companies, have opened. They are hiring Kenyans. They are using our local products. Do you know what? I was in Taita Taveta today. And one of the things I'm going to do next month is to go to Taita Taveta, where we have iron ore, which we have been exporting as a raw material. And many people were telling us stories. Now, the same companies who were complaining to me last year, they have said one of them is now going to invest in Taita Taveta iron ore, not to export, but to manufacture steel locally using raw materials from Taita Taveta County, including all the other counties where we have iron ore. That is the difference we make when we make the right decision. So we are building our own local manufacturing. Issue umesema ni ya walemavu. Na ni kweli. Pale bado tuko na changamoto. Na ndio sababu nimefanya mambo mawili tangu niingie katika ofisi. Jambo la kwanza nimesema lazima tupanue ile mpango wa cash transfer ambayo inafikia watoto walemavu, watu wanaoishi na ulemavu, ndio tuweze tuwafikie wengi. Tumewasajili watu wengine wazee wa miaka ambayo 70, walemavu, tumewasajili wengine 1,500 in the last 1 year. Na tumewaweka sasa katika program ya cash transfer, number 1. Number 2, vile vile tumesema hiyo program ya cash transfer ilikuwa inachukua muda mrefu sana. Walikuwa wanangojea miezi 6, miezi 4 kabla hajalipwa ile pesa ya cash transfer. Sasa tumebadilisha sheria, nilisema na nimetimiza ya kwamba kabla mshahara ya rais kulipwa, lazima cash transfer ilipwe. That is happening today. That is happening today. We are paying money for cash transfer for people living with disability, for the aged, and for orphans, at the same time as we pay salaries for public servants. They used to wait for 6 months, 4 months, 8 months. But as I made a commitment, I have kept that commitment, and people like the ones Elizabeth is talking about are going to be beneficiaries in that space. But I still agree with you on the third space, ya kwamba sio lazima watoto walemavu waende kwa shule ya watoto walemavu. We must make it possible for wale watoto wanaishi na ulemavu wasome pamoja na watoto wengine katika shule zetu zote. Na nilipata hiyo habari na umenisaidia, kwa sababu sasa leo nitafanya hiyo kazi umesema. Naamini watu wa Wizara ya Elimu wamo mahali fulani, nitawatafuta na nitawapatia amri ya kwamba what Elizabeth has said, because it is part of our manifesto, we were implementing it, lakini hatujaikamilisha. Sasa nitaifuatilia kwa kasi. I have suggested very specific interventions on how to deal with the challenge of corruption. I have said we must change the Evidence Act so that corruption cases doesn't take 5-10 years. That is what happens today. That we should be able to conclude corruption cases in 6 months. I will be making the proposal to Parliament. I hope Parliament agrees with me so that we can deal with the challenge and monster of corruption firmly and decisively. Number 2, I have given my undertaking to the judiciary. In fact, I had an engagement with the Chief Justice a few days ago on my support, on my administration support for the judiciary. It is demonstrable. When I came into office, I made sure that the judiciary has sufficient resources to be able to discharge their mandate, to be able to deal with corruption cases, to be able to deal with all the other cases. In fact, I am the president that has sworn in the highest number of judges in the shortest time in Kenya to facilitate the judiciary to be able to discharge their mandate. Because it is said, justice delayed is justice denied. And you can ask from members of the judiciary my support for the judiciary. In fact, when I came into office, there were 6 judges that have been denied their right to be appointed. I appointed them the first day when I got into office to demonstrate my commitment to the judiciary. Let me also say the following, that on the subject of corruption, I am very clear in my mind, and I will mobilize resources that are available. I will mobilize every resource that is available to deal with the challenge of corruption. Issue umesema ni ya walemavu, na ni kweli. Pale bado tuko na changamoto. Na ndio sababu nimefanya mambo mawili tangu niingie katika ofisi. Jambo la kwanza nimesema lazima tupanue ile mpango wa cash transfer ambayo inafikia watoto walemavu, watu wanaoishi na ulemavu, ndio tuweze tuwafikie wengi. Tumewasajili watu wengine wazee wa miaka ambayo 70, walemavu, tumewasajili wengine 1500 in the last 1 year. Na tumewaweka sasa katika program ya cash transfer, number 1. Number 2, vile vile tumesema hiyo program ya cash transfer ilikuwa inachukua muda mrefu sana. Walikuwa wanangojea miezi 6, miezi 4 kabla hajalipwa ile pesa ya cash transfer. Sasa tumebadilisha sheria, nilisema na nimetimiza ya kwamba kabla mshahara ya rais kulipwa, lazima cash transfer ilipwe. That is happening today. That is happening today. We are paying money for cash transfer for people living with disability, for the aged, and for orphans, at the same time as we pay salaries for public servants. They used to wait for 6 months, 4 months, 8 months. But as I made a commitment, I have kept that commitment, and people like the ones Elizabeth is talking about are going to be beneficiaries in that space. But I still agree with you on the third space, ya kwamba sio lazima watoto walemavu waende kwa shule ya watoto walemavu. We must make it possible for wale watoto wanaishi na ulemavu wasome pamoja na watoto wengine katika shule zetu zote. Na nilipata hiyo habari na umenisaidia kwa sababu sasa leo nitafanya hiyo kazi umesema. Naamini watu wa Wizara ya Elimu wamo mahali fulani, nitawatafuta na nitawapatia amri ya kwamba what Elizabeth has said, because it is part of our manifesto, we were implementing it, lakini hatujaikamilisha. Sasa nitaifuatilia kwa kasi. This year, it is the first year Kenya Airways made a profit. First year. And I still want to work on it. Bado iko na kisirani kidogo, but I'm working on it so that we make sure that we straighten it and it can serve our country better. We still have a long way to go. I agree with you that we need to approve a few more airlines. It's a delicate balance, people. It's a delicate balance between allowing more people to fly here, because anybody we allow to fly here, they must also give us an opportunity to fly to their destination so that it becomes even. So we are discussing with other airlines. We've just approved Etihad to fly 4 times a week. So we're looking at other opportunities for us to be able to get more flights. I've heard you about Turkish Airlines. We will look at it. The funding model, by the way, affects both our university students and also affects our TVET students. So what did I do? I did 3 things. Number 1, we made a commitment as government that we are going to give every student 80% scholarship and loan. But because we could not afford, especially because the number of students, when we made that commitment, it was like 15 years ago. But you know, as the numbers increased in the university, it became difficult for us to meet that commitment. And so what ended up happening was that while we committed to pay 80%, we ended up paying 50%, some cases 45%. So what happened? There was a huge funding gap in our universities, a huge funding gap in our universities. And our universities were struggling. They couldn't pay for services, they couldn't pay lecturers, they couldn't run their programs, and we ended up with affecting the quality of education in our universities. You couldn't attend as many labs as was required. You couldn't attend as many practicals as you required. We ended up compromising on our education. So what did I do? I said, we need to be honest with ourselves. And we said, there are parents like William Ruto who can afford. Why would William Ruto be given 80%? Why would the child of William Ruto be given 80% scholarship? The same as a child of Mama Mboga. What happens is that both our children end up suffering. So we changed the model. We said, since there is a means testing instrument that has been used for 20 years to assess every student on the basis of the information they supply, and it has worked in Kenya for 20 years. Let us use that means testing instrument that is available at the Higher Education Loans Board to assess every student. And we changed the model so that children from vulnerable families, children from parents who are less endowed, we move them from getting 80% to getting 95%. And children from parents like myself, we move them from getting 80%, we move them to 60%. Because we can afford. We changed it into 5 categories. Because of the change in that model, we also said that scholarship is going to be available on application. Because you know, the old model, every student, without even applying, they were given scholarship. But there are parents who do not need it. And for your information, 20% of students last year did not apply for scholarship, they went and their parents paid because they didn't need it. What has happened? Of that 20% of the students, we now have more money to pay for children from vulnerable families. That is how the model has changed. So we now have 5 categories. We have those that get 95%, we have those that get 90%, we have those that get 70%, we have those that get 60%, and we have categorized and we are using what we are calling an instrument called means testing instrument that tests the ability of parents. We will continue to perfect that instrument. There will always be maybe a problem here and there, but we will make sure that we keep that program so that we increase the level of funding in our universities. What has happened, because of this new funding model, we have had to increase money that we are putting in the education of our university students from about 45 billion. This year, we put 82 billion shillings. We are putting more money because we have to be realistic. We cannot send our kids to school and we haven't provided for funding for them to go and be taught. We would be cheating our children. If we tell them go to school and we cannot pay the lecturers in school, we cannot pay for their classes, we cannot run the programs. So that is why I have decided I am spending more money in education. It's much more expensive for me, but it is better to have students who graduate when they have gone through proper school, with proper learning, with their parents, with their teachers paid and their lecturers paid, and we have increased the budget for education in that manner. I know there is a problem, and the problem is a problem of communication. Because many parents received an admission and they saw the course costs 300,000. Then the parents said, okay, where am I going to find these 300,000? I have since instructed the ministry that although the cost is 300,000, there must be clarity that this course is 300,000, yes, but a parent can get up to 95% scholarship and loan of that amount. So I think now there is going to be greater communication so that parents can understand that whatever it is that is appearing on those admission letters is not the money demanded from them. It is just the cost of the course. But that course will be met largely by scholarship, partly by loan, and very insignificantly by parents paying the fee they have been paying. Hii ndio mwanzo. Na nitafanya hivi kwa mpango. Nitaona kama nitaweza kufanya kila mwezi ama kila baada ya wiki mbili. Nitazungumza na Wakenya kutoka sehemu mbalimbali. Leo nimefurahi sana kupata nafasi kuongea na ndugu zetu wa kutoka hapa Pwani katika mazungumzo haya. I want to say to all of you who interacted with me, asked questions, to tell you I am truly grateful and I'm very proud that we can have this conversation as Kenya and as Kenyans. And wacha niwatetee wale wanahabari ambao walikuwa hapa pia wakauliza maswali. Nafikiri wamenizoea sana kuniuliza maswali mpaka wengine wakasema hapana, wacha tupate Wakenya wengine pia waulize huyu bwana maswali. So asanteni sana. Nataka niwashukuru nyote kwa maswali yenu. Every question you have asked is important to us, and it is important that the people of Kenya hold me to account, because that is the responsibility that I have as President of Kenya, so that I can be able to be answerable to the people. Asanteni sana, Mungu awabariki na nawapenda sana.